People whispered about him long before she ever saw him. Lucian Vale, the billionaire with the winter-cold eyes, the man who never smiled, never lingered, never looked twice at anyone, except her, and no one understood why. But that day, the day the truth began unraveling, Sarah Wynne was simply trying to survive her shift at Halcyon Towers Cafe, where she worked part-time while juggling night classes and overdue bills that seemed to breed in the dark. The morning rush was brutal. She spilled a latte on her apron, burned her finger on a steam wand, and endured 3 customers who acted like her existence was a personal inconvenience. But she kept her head down, kept moving, kept breathing. She always did. "Order for Lucian." Her voice barely carried over the chatter as she placed a black coffee, no sugar, no cream on the pickup counter. A hand reached for it at the same time she did, brushing her fingers lightly. She jerked back instinctively. The man standing across from her didn't. He didn't flinch. He didn't apologize. He simply watched her. And that was the moment Sarah's world shifted. Lucian Vale was taller than she expected, broad-shouldered, poised, dressed in a suit that looked like it cost more than her monthly rent. His hair was dark and perfectly styled, but it was his eyes that froze her in place. Gray, sharp, almost familiar. He said nothing, didn't blink, didn't look away. Sarah's heart thudded unevenly. Your coffee, sir." He finally took it, fingers curling around the cup with quiet precision. "Thank you, Sarah." Her breath caught. She hadn't told him her name. Before she could ask, he turned and walked away, crowd parting around him like he was something too powerful to touch. The whispers started the second he left the building. That was Lucian Vale. He never picks up his own orders. Did he just stare at her? He doesn't stare at anyone. Sarah wiped her palms on her apron, suddenly feeling too warm, too flustered, too exposed. It wasn't the first time. Lucian had been coming to the cafe for days, always silent, always early, always watching her with a strange, unreadable intensity. She assumed it was coincidence, bad luck. Her imagination running wild, but imagination didn't explain how he knew her name. Her shift ended at noon, and she rushed out to her night class on urban psychology, arriving with just enough time to take the last empty seat. The classroom quieted as Professor Wynne began lecturing, and then Sarah froze. A man stood at the back of the room, hands in his pockets, posture crisp as a blade. His eyes scanned the room, dissecting every face. Lucian, again. Her pulse spiked. He shouldn't be there. He didn't belong in her cheap community college classroom. Students shifted uneasily, pretending not to notice him. Some recognized him, most didn't. But he wasn't looking at them. His eyes were on her. Her stomach flipped. She looked down at her notebook, pretending to write, but the weight of his gaze pressed on her skin like heat. Minutes dragged. Her breath tangled. Her heart raced. Then, halfway through the lecture, he left silently, smoothly, like a shadow sliding off the wall, and Sarah's hands shook for the rest of the class. That night, she collapsed onto her apartment's old couch, exhausted. Her roommate had left a sticky note on the fridge rent due Friday. The number circled, made Sarah's throat tighten. She closed her eyes, sinking deeper into the cushions. 3 knocks echoed at the door. She sat up, startled. No one ever visited her. No one even knew where she lived, except her roommate. Maybe she forgot her keys. Sarah opened the door and froze. Lucian Vale stood in the dim hallway, rain clinging to his shoulders, his presence too large for the narrow space. Her hand tightened on the doorknob. How do you know where I live?" He didn't look apologetic. He didn't look threatening. He looked determined. "I needed to speak with you," he said quietly. Her pulse hammered. "You shouldn't be here." "You're right." He stepped back slightly, giving her space, his voice impossibly controlled. "May I come in, or would you prefer we speak somewhere else?" "No," she breathed. I don't understand. What do you want from me?" For the first time since she'd seen him, something cracked in his expression. A flicker of conflict, pain, memory. "Sarah," he murmured, saying her name like he'd said it 1,000 times before. "I've been searching for you for years." Her breath strangled. "What?" she whispered. He stepped closer slowly, carefully, like approaching something fragile. "You don't remember me," he said, eyes burning with something she didn't know how to name. She shook her head, and then he said the words that sent fire racing through her veins. "You saved my life." Sarah's world lurched sideways. No, that couldn't be right. She didn't know billionaires. She didn't save anyone. "I think you have the wrong person," she whispered, heart slamming. His jaw tightened. "No." His voice deepened, edged with a truth that sent chills through her. "I never forget a face, especially not the one that kept me alive." Heat prickled across her skin. Confusion twisted under her ribs. Fear mingled with something dangerously close to recognition. "But I don't who when." Lucian exhaled shakily, stepping forward one more controlled inch. "Let me tell you, Sarah," he said softly. "Let me tell you how a girl with ink-smudged hands and a broken backpack saved a boy who wasn't supposed to live, and why I've been watching over you ever since." Her breath shattered, because suddenly, too suddenly, a forgotten memory flickered at the edge of her mind. A boy in an alley, blood, rain, her trembling hands holding pressure on a wound, a name she never caught, a life she never expected to matter again. Until now. Lucian's eyes burned into hers. "I owe you everything." And Sarah finally understood. His staring wasn't obsession, it wasn't curiosity, it wasn't power, it was gratitude, history, fire, and it was only the beginning. Sarah's lungs felt tight, as if the hallway itself had shrunk around her. For years she'd struggled, scraped, survived, never once imagining she'd impacted anyone's life, much less a man like him. "Tell me," she whispered, fingers tightening on the edge of the door. Lucian's expression softened, not cold, not guarded, but aching. A kind of ache she didn't expect a billionaire to carry. "It was 13 years ago," he said quietly. "I was 15, wrong place, wrong time. I was attacked behind an old market on 6th Street. A faint, foggy memory tugged at her. Rain, a cracked street lamp, her shoes soaked, knees trembling. "You were there," he continued. "You were so small I thought you'd run. But you didn't. You pressed your hands against the wound, yelled for help, refused to let me close my eyes." Her breath shook. Because the memory once buried under years of survival was slowly resurfacing. "I remember," she whispered. "A boy, bleeding so much I thought he'd—" Lucian stepped closer, voice dropping. "You kept me alive long enough for an ambulance to arrive. My family never found you. You disappeared before they could thank you." Sarah felt heat rise behind her eyes. "I didn't disappear. I just left before they asked questions." He studied her, gaze dark with something intense and unspoken. "You were terrified." "I was 12, she said softly, "and the world hadn't been kind to me. I didn't trust anyone." His jaw tightened, not in anger toward her, but toward the world that forced a child to think that way. "I've been looking for you ever since," Lucian whispered. "And when I saw you at the cafe, I knew." Sarah swallowed. "Why didn't you just tell me then?" He hesitated, a long, heavy beat. "Because I didn't want to overwhelm you," he said. "Because you looked exhausted." A pause. "And because once I told you the truth, I knew I wouldn't be able to stay away." Her breath snagged. Lucian took a measured step forward, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating off him. "I wasn't watching you out of control," he murmured. "I was watching to make sure the girl who saved my life wasn't drowning alone." Her eyes glistened. "Lucian, I know your rent is overdue." His voice stayed gentle but firm. "I know you're juggling 2 jobs and night classes. I know you've carried everything on your own." She looked down, ashamed. "I didn't want anyone's pity." His fingers lifted slowly, carefully tilting her chin up just enough that she met his stare. "This isn't pity," he said. "It's debt. It's loyalty. It's—" He exhaled, barely a tremor in his breath. "It's something I haven't felt in a long time." The air between them tightened. "You don't owe me anything," Sarah whispered. "No," Lucian said softly, "but I owe you everything. And I intend to stand by you the way you stood by me." Her heart cracked open. He wasn't there to overpower her. He wasn't there to save a damsel. He was there because she had once saved a frightened boy who grew into a powerful man, and he had been burning with the truth ever since. In the dim hallway, Lucian Vale lowered his head slightly, not a bow, not quite, but a vow. "You saved my life, Sarah Wynne," he whispered. "I won't leave yours unguarded." And just like that, the truth hit like fire.